obviously we drafted Chris Duarte at 13, who was a guy that was very high on our board. He's a guy that we feel can play three positions, 2, 3, and play some one. He's a terrific offensive player. He's a terrific defender, and a guy that's very mature and we feel is ready to help us now. We also made a trade for the rights for Isaiah Jackson from Kentucky. We wanted to add athleticism, shot blocking, a lob threat at the rim, and a defender to the roster as well. The components of that trade we can't talk about per league rules, but it was a great addition for us. He's was one of the top shot blockers in the nation, and again, a very versatile defender, and a kid that's, I think, 19 years old or about to be 19 years old, so very young with a great deal of upside. So we're excited about the draft, and take any questions anybody has.
Okay, we'll open it up. Raise your hands for questions, please, and we'll start with Wheat.
Yeah, Rick, with Chris's skill set and his experience, do you feel like he's the type of player that could come in and potentially play right away?
I do. I think he's got a great chance to crack our rotation right off the bat. One of the reasons that we were drawn to him was the fact that he was, more of a finished product than a lot of the guys in the draft. And we're trying to get healthy and win games. So, his athleticism is underrated. His skill set is unique. At 6'6", he has both length, speed, and quickness. And, we just feel like he can do a lot of things at both ends of the floor.
Other questions, please. We'll keep this going.
Tony, go ahead.
Rick, you mentioned Chris's maturity earlier. How much did being NBA ready and being, that maturity impact your decisions to pick both him and Isaiah tonight?
Yeah, it's a factor, but the other part of it is he was the best player available at 13 in our eyes. Forget about the age, forget about, any of those kinds of considerations. You always want to get the best player that's available. And again, at 6'6", he's big enough to play some three. He's skilled enough to play some one. 2 is his natural position. I view him as a playmaking, athletic 2 that's highly skilled, a terrific shooter, who's ready to be an NBA defender. And I think, he's going to have the ability to defend at all 3 of those positions. And I feel also that with all the switching that's done in the NBA now, with his size and combativeness on the floor, that he'll be able to battle big guys on the inside, when there are switches and rolls. So, we're excited, and he's, we talked to him a few minutes ago. He's just so emotional, about being drafted 13, and he'll be here tomorrow for a press conference.
Bob Kravitz.
Yeah, Rick, you touched on this, but what do you like about Isaiah Jackson? What drew you to him specifically?
We had a good workout here 2.5, 3 weeks ago. He's got a really good feel for the game, for a guy that, really played center for Kentucky and is known as a great athlete. He has great speed up and down, but he passes and moves and sees things. And we really need to add athleticism to this roster. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he'll be one of our top athletes. He's a legitimate shot blocker, as I mentioned. I don't know his rank. He was top 3 or 4 in the country, I think. He had one game this year. He had 8 block shots, I think, against Kansas, who's a hell of a team. And, he's another guy that brings another unique element, and that is a rolling, lob threat at the rim. One of the things he demonstrated in the workout was his ability to accelerate, get up and finish, really effortlessly. So, he has tremendous upside, at barely turning 19 or he's about to turn 19, one of the two. I mean, you can check that record yourselves to make sure, but, at age 19, he's got another good 4 to 5, 6 years of development. And as I mentioned, we spent some time with him on his skill, sort of the skill aspect of his game to see if he could pick up certain things. And I was impressed. And I think he's a kid that's going to be extremely coachable.
Hot Agnes.
Rick, to follow up on that, Isaiah was just talking about how you were the only coach that worked with him, was working on his shot, was doing something. What specifically were you looking to get out of that with Isaiah?
Yeah, as I mentioned, sometimes kids in college systems are put in roles that, are kind of narrowly focused. And the reason is obvious. I mean, John Calipari, who's a Hall of Fame coach, gets these kids basically, and a lot of them, probably the majority of them, are going to be one and done. And so, within those roles, they do their job exceptionally well. That's another thing that drew us to him, was the fact that it's, he's coming out of a program, brings players along and develops players very similar to the NBA. Now, because of how their team was set up, one of the things that their staff told our scouts and some of our staff was that we're going to be surprised at this kid's feel for the game, his skill level, and some of those kinds of things. I worked with him with his shot a little bit, to see, just on a couple of minor adjustments, just to see how quickly he could adapt. And again, he was, extremely open to it. And I thought he showed that, he's going to be a kid that's very adaptable. And I think it just speaks to kind of, his feel as a basketball player and an athlete as well. So, this is an important pick for us because, high level of athleticism, switchability, the versatility to guard all different positions on switches when he's guarding a big and switches onto a point guard or a two guard. I mean, those skills are mammothly important in today's game.
And then on Chris, do you view him we talk about him as a ready-made player. Do you view him as a guy that could perhaps be in your rotation right away? And was that a priority ideally for you, knowing you want to come here and win right away?
Well, we wanted the best player available at 13. We had a pecking order. It went almost exactly how we expected. And we're thrilled to get him. And yes, I do think that he has the opportunity to crack our rotation. His maturity, when you watch him play, he plays like a pro. He plays at his pace. He has a great feel for sort of change of pace. He never plays in a hurry. A lot of the young kids in college, when you see them play, there's a kind of a franticness at times to the college game. This kid plays the game, at a different tempo, and he's got the ability to explode, but he plays at his pace, and he controls the game the way he wants to. And those are traits and characteristics of a very mature player who's really developed. I'll tell you the other thing I like about him. I like the fact that he's had a wide range of diverse experience. Spending some time at JUCO, going through some of the tough things he did to get to the point he is now. And I could tell by my conversation with him on the phone a few moments ago that he's just overwhelmed with emotion at this moment. So We're really happy to have him. I think he's a guy that Indiana Pacer basketball fans are going to fall in love with because of his passion, the kind of teammate he's going to be, and the way he's going to represent the city.
Jay Michael.
Hey, Rick, as you talk about switchability and in playing multiple positions, I mean, isn't that kind of ultimately, I wouldn't say forget the regular season, it's important, but if you want to get deep into the postseason in order to avoid having certain guys schemed out and made unplayable in the playoffs, that having guys that can play three positions, that kind of switchability is what basically can get you to that next level of having that at not just at Chris Duarte's position or Isaiah's position, but at all five on the floor.
Yes. I mean, you've answered the question, Jay. I mean, I couldn't give a better answer than that. Both of these guys have great versatility defensively. Chris Duarte is more advanced offensively because of his experience level, and the fact that he's playing, the real high level skill position of 2, 1, and 3, or 3, 2, and 1, or 1, 2, and 3, however we want to look at it. But again, we're excited at Isaiah Jackson's feel for the game, the level of upside that he has. And again, the short amount of time that I spent with him, I just believe he's going to be a guy that's going to be a worker. I know a little bit about guys from Michigan. He's from Michigan, from the Detroit area. They're tough. They love to play, and they love to work. And so we're thrilled to have him and Chris with us.
Any other questions for Coach to follow up here?
Okay. Thank you. Look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow at the press conference. Chad Buchanan will be here shortly.
Okay. Nice haircut.
Everybody's sticking around tonight. It's I know it's getting a little late. Draft's still going, but very, very exciting night for our organization. Adding a couple players that we have looked at for quite a long time and have liked for quite some time. Some of them, some of these guys we start tracking when they're in high school, and you start to develop an opinion of them. And the more work you do on them and evaluate their development, gets you more and more excited about them. So I thought this was a very good draft class in general. I think there's going to be a lot of good players that come out of this draft, and we feel very fortunate to have two guys at a couple of different positions that I think are going to be very productive players for us in the future. So with that, I'll fire away and take any questions you have.
All right, Bob Kravitz, starts off, please.
Sure. Hey, Chad. What specifically drew you to Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson?
Well, I'd say they're both obviously different profile players. One's a little older, more experienced player in terms of his age. Chris is somebody that's really grown over the last 2 years at the University of Oregon. I think he's developed into a player who's got a lot of versatility on both sides of the ball. He's a very good defender on and off the ball. Great work ethic, great toughness. He's got a very unique story to where he got to where he's at tonight, and is a guy that we've tracked over the last 2 years who was really, his shooting's improved, his ball handling's improved, and he may be 24 years old, but he really started playing basketball as a teenager. So he's relatively, young to the game relative to what your typical American player might be that starts when he's 7 or 8 years old playing the game. So really impressed by his personality when he came through to work out for us. All the coaches we've talked to, both at Oregon and that have played against him and coached against him, rave about his toughness, his ability to shoot the ball. I think, our league today is about shooting and guys being able to create their own shot, create their own space. He's got a beautiful NBA stroke, and I think it's going to translate from day one, shooting the ball. And I think the more he picks up the game on the defensive side, I think he's got a chance to be a two-way player for us. And then you look at Isaiah, very young player, comes from a terrific program that's notorious for producing good NBA players. And we feel like his energy, his athleticism, his motor, is a great foundation to work with. Learning the NBA game as far as defensive concepts, skill development is going to be very important for him, but we feel like he has a bright future. You know, he's not quite maybe as ready to play as Chris might be, but we kind of had the philosophy tonight. We had 2 opportunities to take, you know, a swing at the plate, and we wanted to kind of go for what we felt like was a pretty sure thing, and we want to take a swing with the other one, you know, a younger, more, maybe a little more higher upside potential, as you guys might say. But very excited about both of them. I feel like Chris is one of the most talented offensive players in this draft, and Isaiah is one of the more talented defensive players in this draft. So we feel like we got a good balance tonight.
Yeah, Chad, with Chris, with the 13th pick, was it important to find someone? Did you need to find someone that you felt could play right away, or were you really just looking at best player available?
I think our philosophy is always going to be best player available. You know, Chris was somebody that was high on our board to begin with. And, you know, we had some guys that we liked in the draft that obviously came off the board before him. That's part of the draft. That's part of being at pick 13. You're going to have some guys that you like that aren't going to be there for you. But at the end of the day, we had a group of players that were in our green box, as we call it, that we would have been thrilled to get any one of them. And Chris was in that box. So at the end of the night, we were happy to get one of those guys. There's always the chance that one of the guys in your box doesn't get to you. So, but we felt fortunate tonight that Chris was there for us.
J. Michael.
Hey, Chad, how much has, you know, the last couple times you guys made the playoffs, how much has it experience of when you had situations where guys were able to get schemed out, as you see happen in playoffs all the time, knowing that, okay, you fell short because you didn't have guys who were versatile enough, you know, maybe a guy didn't have shooting range or ball handling, or maybe he didn't have an offhand, that kind of thing. When you look forward into this draft, when you get Duarte, how much has that experience affected you guys' thinking going forward of finding guys who have a little bit more things to their game? If you take one thing away, they can beat you another way. And if you take that away, then they can beat you another way.
Sure. I mean, the more a guy has to his game, the better in our league. You know, it's become the game's a little smaller than it used to be 10, 12 years ago. Players that have a little positional size and the ability to create off the dribble. When things break down, you know, our league has become much less about play calling and more about free flowing action on the offensive end. And you need players that can move the ball, that can shoot the ball, can handle, can pass, have a high IQ. And Chris checks a lot of those boxes. Now, we're not expecting him to come in right away and, you know, be a huge contributor. It's every rookie goes through a learning curve. But, you know, when you watch the NBA playoffs, you see players that are, you know, of his size and his, you know, skill level that are succeeding. And, you know, I think Chris has a chance as he learns the NBA game to do a lot of things that help in a playoff setting. When things break down, the ability to go create a shot and raise up and elevate over somebody to make shots is like super critical in our league. And the more guys you can have do that, the better. And we feel like Chris is that type of player.
Scott.
Chad, can you walk us through the timeline of acquiring that 31st pick? Was that something that happened in relatively short time? And also, can you clarify, is it 2 future second-round picks?
I can't clarify the exact details on that, but it was a lot of discussion. I feel like this year was one of the more active drafts as draft day unfolded with teams. There was a lot of jockeying for picks. You know, there's certain teams in our league that have multiple picks and have accumulated a lot of picks. So that leads to teams who don't have any picks. So that creates a lot of activity from teams wanting to get into the draft. You spend, you know, 12 months out of the year scouting players, and when you're left without a pick, you kind of want a ticket to the party. So I think there was more teams this year hunting picks than in the past. And we were aggressive trying to move up as high as we could get using what assets we had. You know, in the past, we've accumulated picks into the future and certain moves that we've made, and we wanted to use those. You know, we didn't want to sit on those. We wanted to be aggressive and try to climb our way back up into the draft and get a young player, which we end up getting in Isaiah.